Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Usman Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees on the line. Thank you very much for your attendance as we continue Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 15, texts 11 to 17, the Pandavas' retired time. Om Jnanatmi Vandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshorunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satpalam Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kalidvando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Srimad Bhagavatam. O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you are enriched with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, the light breath of the Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Vashasharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisance to you by reading O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisance to you by reading you one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You always be served by everyone for your incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madhika Bandhu Mad Sangim Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Anandana Mastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. Sadhu Sadhu Kadahin Atini Chocha Taraka Hanamun Chakada Chinmam Premna Ritkatyospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly, who uplift to the very fallen, please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest Mahatma Tro, accompany of pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvayaditaratas Charte Swabhigma Swarahat Tene Brahmaidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Rishaham Tamna Swena Sada Nirastakwakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Spirit, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance to you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primary cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifest universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen in water. Only because of him the material universe is temporarily manifest by the reactions of the three modes of nature, pure, factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent, transcendable, which is forever free from illusory representation of material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Parayana Pasha Sabya Kalavismin Yuge Jana Manda Suman Dayomand Bhagyupadrata. O learned one in this iron age of Kali, many but short lives, that quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above always disturbed. Narayana Namaskritya Narochevam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obedience to the personhood of God and Narayan, and to Lord Narayan, which is the supermost human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savai Pum Soparodharmo Yato Bhaktira Dokchaje, Ahitukya Pratyata Yatma Suprasidati, The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service and to transcend the Lord. Such devotional service, unmotivated and uninterrupted, completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yakshusavai Ragyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of God, Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires process knowledge and detachment from the world. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yach gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentals who know the absolute truth calls non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Shuru Shuru Shosharadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Shrandatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Yiredvantastoya Bhadrani Vidunati Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of God, who is Paramatma, supreme in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of a truthful devotee, cleanses desire from material enjoyment. From the heart of the devotee is developed the urge to raise messages which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nitam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Masloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. By regular attendance and classes of Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God, whose praise or transcendental is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We continue Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna. So let us cover any feedback anyone has from our last session. The first 10 verses. Okay, Nalini Kanta Prabhu says, don't be puffed up by any talent. It is not ours. It comes from Krishna. Always feel obliged and use it in the service of the Lord. He can take it away any time. Yes. And the section, Arjuna is remembering the Supreme Lord and at the same time revealing to us, revealing to us the consciousness of a devotee, and that is that a devotee of the Lord, he sees all the talents coming from Krishna. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability in men. So when we understand Krishna is giving us these abilities, as Nalini Kanapurva has rightfully written, that we should not become proud, and we should use everything that Krishna has given us in his service. If we become proud, that obviously takes us away from Krishna's mercy more and more. And if Krishna really wants to teach us a lesson, then he can pull the plug, or they say, pull the rug under your feet. He can withdraw his potency and teach us that actually it's not our potencies, it's coming from Krishna. Kamavati Radhika says, the doctor heard the holy name through the stethoscope in the heart of a Kinchana Krishna's Bauji Maj. Arjuna's body resounded Krishna's names, the bricks vibrating the holy name with pure chanting of Lord Krishna's Bauji Maj. Very inspiring to hear. The power of chanting by those who are pure devotees of the Lord. Pure devotees of the Lord, when they vibrate and chant the holy names of the Lord, then they are chanting pure name, imbued with pure love of Krishna, and therefore Krishna is present, very, very much there. And the holy name, Krishna in the form of the holy name, in the form of Namrup, can impact and influence the surroundings, completely transform the surroundings. So yes, we should be inspired by these pure devotees of the Lord that chant so wonderfully, like Haridas Thakur, previous acharyas. They are our role models. Srila Prabhupada. To continue on this path, we need inspiration. And that inspiration can come from great souls, and that inspiration can also come from Krishna internally. Then Madhachana Siddhi says, pure devotion to Krishna is ever increasing. Whether we are with Krishna or separate with Krishna, it increases our affection with him. And the Pandavas are now going through, they were with Krishna, having the direct personal association of Krishna, Krishna guiding them through so many situations, protecting them, helping them. That bond that they had with Krishna is very, very strong. And now Krishna leaves, very painful for the Pandavas, for the devotees of the Lord. At the same time, Krishna leaving causes pain of separation from Krishna in the heart, but at the same time allows them to intensify their remembrance of Krishna. And when you remember Krishna, then Krishna is present, and Krishna is present, then there is bliss. So externally, there is that pain and separation. Internally, there's this great joy. So it's a mixture of qualities. Thank you very much for your feedback. Let us proceed with today's verses. So today we're going to be covering the balance of the verses. Arjuna recalls Lord Krishna's favor and protection. Text 11. Yo no jugo pavana etya duranta krichrad durvasaso rirachitad anutagrabu yam sakhan sishtam upayujya yatastri lokim triptam amasta salile vinimagna sangha. During our exile, Durvasa Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By his accepting food, thus the assembly of the Munis, while bathing in the river, felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. So in these purports, as Arjuna is recollecting the different incidents where he sees Krishna's favor, protection, etc., Srila Prabhupada takes the liberty to elaborate on the personalities and the specific pastimes. And we take the liberty, the benefit of reading, the opportunity of reading what Srila Prabhupada has written. Srila Prabhupada could have written one sentence. Everyone knows this famous pastime of Durvasa Muni and his 10,000 disciples. It's there in the Mahabharata, full stop, next purport. But Srila Prabhupada did not do that. Srila Prabhupada took the time to expand, and we see some of these purports, the paragraphs are fairly lengthy. The purports are fairly lengthy. So Prabhupada is, and this is late at, late in the night, right? Midnight, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Prabhupada could have said, well, time is running, and because I don't have much time, it's late in the night, let me just give one sentence purports. But Prabhupada is not doing that. He is in great ecstasy, recollecting these pastimes and sharing his loving reciprocation, loving relationship with Krishna through these Bhaktivedanta purports. So we should also take great pleasure in reading and associating with Srila Prabhupada through his Bhaktivedanta purports, even though we may know the pastime. We may, so yeah, I know this pastime, let me skip over. Nope. So it's not a question of knowing the pastime and skipping over. It's about Srila Prabhupada recollecting the pastimes. He is, because he is in love with Krishna, when he's recollecting, he is sharing his love. Just like one time Srila Prabhupada was giving a talk in the early days in America. And Prabhupada had, very often, regularly talked about Lord Chaitanya. And that day, one of the devotees who was there, possibly knew, raised the hand and said, Swamiji, can you please tell me about Lord Chaitanya? Now, Prabhupada could have said, well, I repeated about Lord Chaitanya so many times. Didn't you get it? No, Prabhupada didn't go in that direction. Prabhupada said, oh, wonderful. Such a wonderful question. And then Prabhupada started speaking about Lord Chaitanya. See? So when there's love, then there's never a question of, but I just covered that. But I just spoke about that. No, why? Because that love is ever fresh. And anytime one speaks about the beloved, it's never dry, it's never hackneyed, it's never like, oh yeah, I just did that. So in this way, we will, with that consciousness, also read Srila Prabhupada's purports. So Prabhupada starts explaining about Durvasa Muni, a powerful mystic Brahmana, determined to observe the principles of religion with great vows and under strict austerities. His name is associated with many historical events, and it appears that the great mystic could be both easily satisfied and easily annoyed, like Lord Shiva. When he was satisfied, he could do tremendous good to the servitor. But if he was dissatisfied, he could bring about the greatest calamity. Kumari Kunti, at her father's house, used to minister all kinds of services to all great brahmanas. And being satisfied with her good reception, Durvasa Muni benedicted her with a power to call any demigod she desired. It is understood that he was a plenary incarnation of Lord Shiva, and thus he could be either easily satisfied or annoyed. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and by Lord Shiva's order, he accepted the priesthood of King Swetaketu because of the king's performance of sacrifice for 100 years. Sometimes he used to visit the parliamentary assembly of the heavenly kingdom of Indradev. He could travel in space by his great mystic powers, and it is understood that he traveled a great distance through space, even up Vaikuntha planets beyond material space. He traveled all these long distances within 1 year during his quarrel with King Ambrish, the great devotee and emperor of the world. He had about 10,000 disciples, and wherever he visited and became a guest of the great Kshatriya kings, he used to be accompanied by a number of followers. Once he visited the house of Duryodhana, the enemy cousin of Mahayudhishthira. Duryodhana was intelligent enough to satisfy the Brahmana by all means, and the great Rishi wanted to give some benediction to Duryodhana. Duryodhana knew his mystic powers, and he knew also that the mystic Brahmana, if dissatisfied, could cause some havoc. And thus, he designed to engage the Brahmana to show his wrath upon his enemy cousins, the Pandavas. When the Rishi wanted to award some benediction to Duryodhana, the latter wished that he should visit the house of the Mahayudhishthira, who was the eldest and the chief among all his cousins. But by his request, he would go to him after he had finished his meals with his queen, Draupadi. Duryodhana knew that after Draupadi's dinner, it would be impossible for Mahayudhishthira to receive such a large number of Brahmana guests, and thus the Rishi would be annoyed and would create some trouble for his cousin Mahayudhishthira. That was the plan of Duryodhana. Durvasa Muni agreed to this proposal, And he approached the king in exile, according to the plan of Duryodhana, after the king and Draupadi had finished their meals. So perhaps narrating the specific pastime, which is very, very instructive. We can see here that there would be people in this world that would wish ill for others. And they would make their plans and arrangements to bring people down, to destroy people, to bring obstacles in individuals' lives. This is the nature of people in the lower modes. We cannot avoid such situations. We cannot control people in the lower modes. The modes will control them, and due to the lower modes, they will be influenced to cause inconvenience, difficulty, difficult situations for different individuals that they don't appreciate or like. That is the nature of the world. Now, the Pandavas were devotees of the Lord. So now let's hear what happens. On his arrival at the door of Yudhishthir, he was at once well received, and the king requested him to finish his noontime religious rites in the river, for by that time the foodstuff would be prepared. Durasa Muni, along with his large number of disciples, went to take a bath in the river, and Yudhishthir was in great anxiety about the guests. As long as Draupadi had not taken her meals, food could be served to any number of guests, but the rishis, by the plan of Duryodhana, reached there after Draupadi had finished her meals. Then Prabhupada says, when the devotees are put into difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. So here's a beautiful sutra by Srila Prabhupada. Now we can see how Prabhupada is sharing the pastime, and then he puts in the important instruction for us to apply. The pastime is revealing a storyline as well as lessons, and Prabhupada is now bringing out that lesson. So here you'll see right in between this pastime, Prabhupada drops in his power statement, his gem. And that gem is when the devotees are put into difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. If we just analyze, let's spend some time analyzing the statement. We see Prabhupada, he's practical. It's not like devotees will never be put into difficulties. And the word is put into difficulties. They didn't ask for it. They didn't call the trouble, but the trouble was put into their lives. So now someone may say, but why are people putting trouble into my life? No, that's not the statement. That's not the practical advice. To moan, groan, etc. No. You will be put into difficulties. Here we find pure devotees are put into difficulties. Now, if pure devotees can be put into difficulties, then who are we as aspiring devotees not to be put into difficulties? So to have this idea that when I take to chanting Hare Krishna, chanting 16 rounds, I will never be put into any difficulty, that is hallucination. That is a dream state. We will be put into difficulties by the cause of the karma that's there, by the cause of nature, by the cause of others. It is just the way the material world works. But if you are in difficulty, then Prabhupada says we have an opportunity. And that opportunity is to recollect the Lord, is to remember the Lord. Now, because we're in difficulty, difficulty has a very powerful way to bring us down to reality. When you understand the real situation, then the feelings, when you, for example, call the Lord or remember the Lord, it is with genuine feeling. Therefore, there's rapt attention, there's focus. Just like when devotees are put into life-threatening situations, in those life-threatening situations, when you call the Lord, right, you have full focus. If somebody, let's consider you're getting hijacked, or somebody, has a gun to your head, or somebody shooting at you, and you got your phone, and you get a WhatsApp message. You're not going to, just be distracted. Oh, wait, let me just see who's on the WhatsApp message, who called me, what's the latest news. You're not going to, you're not going to be distracted, right? You're going to be focused on the situation at hand, which is dangerous. And therefore, even if your phone rings, even if you get WhatsApp messages, you will not be distracted because you understand the urgency, the critical situation at hand. You will be focused. There will be rapt attention. And in that rapt attention state, you will be calling out to the Lord for protection. So, therefore, Prabhupada is helping us to understand the opportunity we have when we're in difficulty. Scripture also says that death is the greatest opportunity to think of Krishna. So every situation that we go through, and in this case, the situation of death or situation of difficulties, we should take advantage of the statement and always remember Prabhupada's instruction. Any difficulty that comes upon you, take that opportunity. It's an opportunity. You could, moan, groan, complain, say it's unfair, I didn't do anything, I'm a devotee, I didn't hurt anyone, I didn't harm anyone, I've been chanting Hare Krishna, why is this all happening? We could go into that mode, but that is not the proper attitude of a devotee. Prabhupada is revealing here, when the devotees are put into difficulties, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention, and that becomes a blessing. Because now you are able to focus. Now your emotions, complete focus is there with your emotion, with your mind, and you're able to sincerely, genuinely pray to the Supreme Lord. And Krishna, according to his sweet will reciprocate as he so desires. But for us, it was an opportunity to remember the Supreme Lord. So the Pandavas did just that. So Draupadi was thinking of Lord Krishna in that dangerous position. And the all-pervading Lord could at once know the dangerous position of his devotee. So this faith we should have, that Krishna, he's all-knowing. He's there in your heart. He's all-pervading. So whenever we remember him, whenever we call upon him, we should have firm faith that he is there. He's hearing, he's seeing. He knows exactly what is happening. Now, because he is completely independent, he can decide how he wants to reciprocate. When we pray to Krishna in difficulty, it may seem like Krishna is not hearing you. Krishna is not responding. On one hand, it seems Krishna is not responding. But on another hand, Krishna responds to every single call. It's just that he may not respond the way you want him to respond in that specific situation. Just like in this situation also, they expected Krishna to come and help feed the Brahmanas, Durasa Muni and his followers. But Krishna, he responds in his own sweet, independent way. Ignoring us is also a response from Krishna. Krishna may also make arrangements that we cannot see. He may make arrangements in the future that we cannot see. So for us, we should have firm faith that Krishna is responding perfectly in every single situation when we pray to him, when we recollect, when we request Krishna's help. Just like a father will always respond to the sincere call of his children. So why wouldn't Krishna respond? But Krishna responds perfectly in a way that benefits us for our spiritual progress, which we may not appreciate or see, but Krishna definitely responds. He therefore came there on the scene and asked Draupadi to give whatever food she might have in her stock. On her being so requested by the Lord, Draupadi was sorrowful because the Supreme Lord asked her for some food and she was unable to supply it at that time. She said to the Lord that the mysterious dish which she had received from the sun god could supply any amount of food if she herself had not eaten. But on that day, she had already taken her meals, and thus they were in danger. By expressing her difficulty, she began to cry before the Lord, as only a woman would do in such a position. The Lord, however, asked Draupadi to bring up the cooking pots to see if there was any particle of food left. And on Draupadi's doing so, the Lord found some particle of vegetable sticking to the pot. The Lord at once picked it up and ate it. After doing so, the Lord asked Draupadi to call all the guests, the company of Durvasa. Now, here's another situation and a lesson. Krishna asked Draupadi to bring the pot. There was some vegetable particles. Krishna ate that. And then he tells Bhim to go and call all the Brahmanas, all Durvasa Muni and his followers. Now, the Pandavas could have said, but Krishna, wait a minute, there's nothing here. Why are you gonna call them? They could have, they could have been put in more anxiety. But let's see what happened. Bhima was sent to call them from the river. Bhima said, why are you delaying, sirs? Come on, the food is ready for you. But there was no food. So Bhima is revealing to us the faith that he had in Krishna. When Krishna said, now go call them, there weren't any preparations done. There were no food. There was nothing arranged. So Bhima had faith that, okay, Krishna is saying I must call them. Let me go call them. He's the Supreme Lord. Bhima goes and now invites everyone. He doesn't know what's happening in the hut, but he has firm faith in Krishna's instructions. He has firm faith in Krishna. So we also, when we're in difficulty, Prabhupada is telling us we should take that as an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. And when we call the Lord with rapt attention, we should have firm faith to place that situation, that event, that difficulty in the hands of the Lord. He is perfectly capable of doing anything. Now, let's say we pray to the Lord, we're in a difficult situation, and nothing apparently changes in terms of the external circumstance. But you had firm faith that the Lord will do whatever is best. So we should simply depend on Krishna, and whatever Krishna is putting us through, that we should accept for our own purification. Simply remembering the Lord and accepting what the Lord arranges. So Bhima goes and immediately calls them. Come on, the food is ready. Bhima was sent to call them from the river. Bhima said, why are you delaying, sir? Come on, the food is ready for you. But the Brahmanas, because of Lord Krishna accepting the little food particle, felt sumptuously fed. Even while they were in the water, they thought that since Yudhishthir must have prepared many valuable dishes for them, and since they were not hungry and could not eat, the king would feel very sorry. So it was better not to go there. Thus, they decided to go away. Now Prabhupada concludes. This incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic, and therefore he is known as Yogeshwar. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord, and the result will be that everyone, even a company of guests numbering 10,000, will be satisfied because of the Lord's being satisfied. That is the way of devotional service. So we want to have faith. Here Krishna ate, and immediately, when the Pandavas offered Krishna, when Krishna ate that grain, Prabhupada also uses this as an example to show how everyone is connected to Krishna. So when Krishna is satisfied, the whole universe is satisfied. And this is proof that because the Pandavas were connected to Krishna, they were nourished by Krishna. And because Durvasa Muni and his followers are connected to Krishna, when Krishna is satisfied, they were satisfied because they were all connected to Krishna. Those who are not connected to Krishna, like for example, Duryodhana, when Krishna is satisfied, Duryodhana will never be satisfied because he is not connected to the root of the tree of Krishna. Like a branch that falls off. When the branch falls off from the tree, no matter what nutrients the tree gets, that branch is not getting that nutrient because it is dislocated, is separated from Krishna. And here we see how Krishna, according to his sweet will, the Pandavas did not know how Krishna is going to handle the situation. But Krishna very wonderfully handled the situation. The Brahmanas were completely full, and they were now thinking, if we go back, we're going to offend Yudhishthira. We don't want to offend the king, so let us go. And Krishna saved the situation. Yatte jatas yatte jasata bhagavan yudhisulapanir Vishma pita sagiri jostratam adanidchamme anya pichayam anmuneva kalevarena prapto mahendra bhavane mahad asanardam. It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God, Lord Shiva, and his wife, a daughter of Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiva, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me, and in addition, I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half-elevated seat. Purport. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of God at Shri Krishna, all the demigods, including Lord Shiva, were pleased with Arjuna. The idea is that one who is favored by Lord Shiva or any other demigod may not necessarily be favored by the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Ravana was certainly a great devotee of Lord Shiva, but he could not be saved from the wrath of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. And there are many instances like that in the histories of the Puranas. But here is an instance where we can see that Lord Shiva became pleased even in the fight with Arjuna. The devotees of the Supreme Lord know how to respect the demigods. But the devotees of the demigods sometimes foolishly think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no greater than the demigods. So here's an important statement by Srila Prabhupada. The devotees of the Supreme Lord know how to respect the demigods. This is one of the etiquettes, very, very important etiquettes, that we do not disrespect the demigods. The demigods are servants of the Supreme Lord, and as servants, we are meant to respect. What to talk about servants? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we should respect every living entity. We should even respect the ant. Every living entity needs to be respected. Why? Because every living entity is connected to the Supreme Lord, and therefore befits our respect. Now, the devotees respect the demigods, but there may be those who are devotees of the demigods. They may not respect the Supreme Lord or accept the Supreme Lord. So that is fine. That is their relationship and their journey. But as devotees of Krishna, as devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should never ever disrespect the demigods. Naturally, there is a specific way to honor and respect the demigods. For example, when Srila Prabhupada went to a temple, a demigod temple, Srila Prabhupada told his followers to do as he was doing, to follow exactly what he did. So Prabhupada goes into the temple, and the demigod or demigoddess is there in the temple, and Prabhupada paid his respects. Generally, when we pay, for example, at the temple, when we pay respects, our left-hand side is towards the personality we're offering respects. So Prabhupada, he paid respects with his right-hand side towards the personality. That was the appropriate way to honor or to offer respects. So Prabhupada showed them. He didn't disrespect, but offered appropriate respect. Naturally, with Lord Shiva is a very special personality, and Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna have a very special relationship. So it is also described, Vaishnava Yatha Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee. At the same time, Lord Shiva is also non-different from Krishna, like yogurt and milk. So we have to still, we have to understand and always respect. That is the best policy. The devotees of the Supreme Lord know how to respect the demigods, but the devotees of the demigods sometimes foolishly think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no greater than demigods. By such a conception, one becomes an offender and ultimately meets with the same end as Ravana and others. The instances described by Arjuna during his friendly dealings with Lord Shri Krishna are instructive for all who may be convinced by the lessons that one can achieve all favors simply by pleasing the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whereas the devotees or worshippers of the demigods may achieve only partial benefits, which are also perishable, just as the demigods themselves are. So what is the lesson? The lesson is that we all have a relationship with Krishna, and by us pleasing the Supreme Lord, we can achieve the favor of the Supreme Lord. And once we achieve the favor of the Supreme Lord, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that a devotee cannot achieve. Prabhupada would say, impossible is in a fool's dictionary. For a devotee, nothing is impossible. Why? Because they are focused in pleasing the Supreme Lord, and nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord. Therefore, we should take again the opportunity to always please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whenever we have that opportunity to do some service for the Supreme Lord, to try to please Krishna, then we should grab that opportunity, because with that comes the favor of Krishna. When Krishna is pleased, Krishna then blesses. And that blessing can deliver, can bring anything our way, whatever is best for us. We may want something, but Krishna may have a better plan. So therefore, we can always, as Prabhupada says, we can pray, Krishna, if you so desire. So we can always pray to Krishna, Krishna, if you so desire, please, give me this. But otherwise, whatever you feel is best for me, please do that. And in this way, Krishna will make whatever, or make the arrangements and give us whatever is best for us. Another significance of the present verse is that Arjuna, by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna, was able to reach the heavenly planets even with the self-same body, and was honored by the heavenly demigods Indradev, being seated with him half elevated. One can reach the heavenly planets by the pious acts as recommended in the Shastras in the category of fruitive activities. And as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:21, when the reactions of such pious acts are spent, the enjoyer is again degraded to this earthly planet. The moon is also on the same level with the heavenly planets, and only persons who have performed virtues only, performing sacrifice, giving charity, and undergoing severe austerities, can be allowed to enter into the heavenly planets after the duration of life of the body. Piety is what we call subtle wealth. So there's gross wealth and there's subtle wealth. We need subtle wealth to achieve higher destinations. So here is one example. By performing sacrifices, giving charity, undergoing severe austerities, we accumulate subtle wealth, piety. And that piety allows us to go to heavenly planets. Okay? So we have to remember there are two categories of wealth. Gross wealth, most people are interested in gross wealth. They focus and they drive. The whole life is driven to get gross wealth. But they don't understand that behind the gross wealth, you need to get subtle wealth. If you get subtle wealth, piety, you automatically can get gross wealth. And without subtle wealth, even gross wealth can be, can be destroyed. So Arjuna was able to achieve the heavenly planets, not by piety, but by Krishna's mercy. Arjuna was allowed to enter into heavenly planets in his self-same body simply by the grace of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible to do so. The present attempt to enter into the heavenly planets by the modern scientists will certainly prove futile, because such scientists are not on the level of Arjuna. They are ordinary human beings without any assets of sacrifice, charity, or austerity. So they don't have the pious credits, they don't have the pious bank balance. Therefore, they will not be successful. The material body is influenced by the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. The present population is more or less influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance. And the symptoms of such influence are exhibited in their becoming very lusty and greedy. Such degraded fellows can hardly approach the higher planetary systems. Above the heavenly planets, there are many other planets also, which only those who are influenced by goodness can reach. In heavenly and other planets within the universe, the inhabitants are all highly intelligent, many more times than the human beings, and they are all pious in the higher and higher modes of goodness. They are all devotees of the Lord, and although their goodness is not unadulterated, still they are known as demigods, possessing the maximum amount of good qualities possible within the material world. So material arrangements using spaceships, etc., is not the appropriate means to travel to higher planets. They will be failures, guaranteed. Even if they are successful and able to enter into those environments, just their nature will not resonate with the environment. And therefore, they will not feel comfortable in that situation. Just like as devotees, as aspiring devotees who are practicing the path of devotional service, we do not feel comfortable going to an environment that is not Krishna conscious. We feel it's a waste of time, or the energy is just, it's like going into a disco. The energy is just not, and not favorable for a devotee. Whereas if we, for example, go to the temple and they're having 24-hour kirtan, devotees are chanting, that is a favorable environment. It resonates with those who are practitioners of spiritual life. So like that, those who are impious, they cannot go to a place that is a place where there are elevated pious souls. It will not, the environment will not allow them, and they will not feel comfortable. The way to go higher is through piety. And naturally here, the beauty of this verse is that Krishna, by Krishna's grace, Arjuna was able to go higher. This is another benefit, that Krishna's favor can allow us to go to any place, to any dimension. Whether we want to go heavenly planets, we want to go to the hellish planets, we want to go to another universe, Krishna can make all that arrangements because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether we are qualified or not, whether we are pious or not, whether we are suitable or not, that is immaterial. If we pleased Krishna and Krishna wants us to go there, then we will reach that destination. So this faith and this opportunity of getting Krishna's favor is actually a blessing for the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 13. Tatreva me viharato bhujadanda yugmam gandiva laksha nam arati vadyadeva sendra shritayad anubhavitam ajabmida tenaham adya mushita purushena bhumna. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indra, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow, to kill the demon named Nivata Kavacha. O king, descendant of Ajamida, at the present moment, I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. Arjuna is recollecting all the different incidents where he showed chivalrous, he showed the power, he showed the strength that he had. And he's connecting that this was all possible by Krishna. This is the attitude, this is the consciousness of a devotee. Krishna may give us the ability. We may even endeavor to cultivate that ability. We may go through a process of upskilling, of learning, of sacrifice, and we may acquire that ability, and we may naturally, when we do go through that process, we may think, well, I acquired that ability, but that ability is still bestowed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Arjuna is seeing it like that, that it is only by Krishna's mercy that I was able to do what I did. The heavenly demigods are certainly more intelligent, powerful, and beautiful. And yet, they had to take help from Arjuna because of his Gandiva bow, which was empowered by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna. The Lord is all powerful, and by his grace, his pure devotee can be as powerful as he may desire. There is no limit to it. And when the Lord withdraws his power from anyone, he is powerless by the will of the Lord. Krishna is unlimited. His strength is unlimited. His power is unlimited. And Krishna can bestow that strength to a devotee and allow the devotee to achieve anything. There is no limit. And that we see that in Srila Prabhupada's own life. And Srila Prabhupada had firm faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he went to America, Prabhupada knew that all he has to do is do his best in pleasing the Supreme Lord, in serving the Lord. And if the Lord desires, the Lord can do anything and spread Krishna consciousness. So like that, we simply have to try our best in serving the Supreme Lord. And whatever the Lord wants, however the Lord wants, whatever the results the Lord wants, that will manifest according to his sweet will. For us, it's not about achieving anything big or anything small. For us, it's simply to be an instrument in the hands of the Lord, to depend on the Supreme Lord, to remember the Supreme Lord, to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. And whatever result, big or small, that we should be grateful for and thank the Supreme Lord. We find Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, whenever somebody would go and distribute even one magazine, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would be very, very happy. And there would be devotees, just like one grand disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He distributes like 4,000 books, 4,000 Mahabib books in a day. So that is special empowerment. So whether one is able to distribute thousands of books, or whether one is able to distribute one book, the most important thing is the sincere dedication to service. And the result is up to Krishna. We give our best, we do our best in serving the Lord, and whatever the result is, that is up to Krishna. He has unlimited strength and power, therefore Krishna can give unlimited results. 14. Yad bandava guru baladim anantaparam eko ratena tatareham atirya sattvam pratyaritam bahudanam chamaya paresham tejaspadam mahimaya charitam sirobhya. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. And only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many of the king's helmets, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance. Purport. On the Kaurava side, there were many stalwart commanders like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Karna. Their military strength was as insurmountable as the great ocean. Try to understand the comparison. The power of the Kauravas was insurmountable as the great ocean. To cross the ocean is impossible. So it was literally impossible to defeat the Kaurava army. The Pandavas were half the size in terms of the army. Even if they had the same size, even if they had double the size, still it was impossible to defeat the Kaurava army. Why? Because they were stalwart commanders like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Karna. These were warriors that were practically undefeatable. Bhishma himself could defeat the Pandava army. Drona was the military guru. Even Karna was a powerful warrior. So the Kaurava army were insurmountable. Yet, Prabhupada continues, and yet it was due to Lord Krishna's grace that Arjuna alone, sitting on the chariot, could manage to vanquish them one after another without difficulty. So the only reason the Pandavas, and here specifically Arjuna, was able to defeat the Kaurava army and all these great stalwart commanders was because Krishna was with them. And this was Arjuna's great fortune. Both Arjuna and Duryodhana had the opportunity to choose either Krishna, who said he will not pick up any weapons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, or his Narayan army. Duryodhana was very happy to select Krishna's Narayan army. He was thinking, what I'm going to do with Krishna if he's not going to fight? What a waste. I'll choose Krishna's army. Arjuna, he was a devotee of Krishna. So he said, my Lord, as long as, even if you don't pick up any weapons, as long as you are there, we're happy. We want you. So Arjuna was wise. And we can see the result. That because Krishna was there, it does not mean that, okay, Krishna made a promise that he would not fight. That doesn't mean Krishna cannot intervene. That doesn't mean Krishna cannot make arrangements. That doesn't mean Krishna can guide and direct and strategize for the Pandavas, which Krishna did. In every situation, Krishna was there to guide them, to help them. And if you got Krishna by your side, if you got Krishna to guide you, to direct you, where is fear? Where is anxiety? Anything is possible, because Krishna is no ordinary person. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So we very, very fortunate that by Prabhupada's blessings, by Prabhupada's mercy, he has given us access to the supreme personality of Godhead. There were many changes of commanders on the other side, but on the Pandavas' side, Arjuna alone on the chariot driven by Lord Krishna could manage the whole responsibility of the great war. Similarly, when the Pandavas were living at the palace of Virat incognito, the Kauravas picked a quarrel with King Virat and decided to take away his large number of cows. When they were all taken away, while they were taking away the cows, Arjuna fought with them incognito and was able to regain the cows alone, with some booty taken by force, the jewels set on the turbans of the royal orders. Arjuna remembered that all this was possible by the grace of the Lord. Text 15. Yo Bhishmakarna Guru Salya Chamu Swadarbra Ranjan Yavarya Ratha Mandala Manditashu Agre Charo Mama Viborata Yutapanam Ayur Manamsi Chadrisha Saha Oja Archa. In the battlefield, it was he only withdrew the duration of life, speculative power, and strength of the enthusiasm from everyone in the great military phalanx made by Kaurava, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, and Salva, etc. The arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Lord Shri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. Purport. The absolute personality of God, Lord Shri Krishna, expands himself by his plenary Paramatma portion in everyone's heart. And thus he directs everyone in the matter of recollection, forgetfulness, and knowledge, the absence of intelligence, and all physiological activities. As the Supreme Lord, he can increase or decrease the duration of life of a living being. Thus, the Lord conducted the battlefield of Kurukshetra according to his own plan. He wanted that battle to establish Yudhishthira as the emperor of this planet. And to facilitate this transcendental business, he killed all who were on the opposite party by his omnipotent will. The other party was equipped with all military strength, supported by big generals like Bhishma, Drona, and Salva. And it would have been physically impossible for Arjuna to win the battle had the Lord not helped him by every kind of tactic. Such tactics are generally followed by every statement, even in modern warfare, but they're all done materially by powerful espionages, military tactics, and diplomatic maneuvers. But because Arjuna was the Lord's affectionate devotee, the Lord did all this himself without personal anxiety by Arjuna. That is the way of devotional service to the Lord. Krishna wanted to establish Yudhishthira Maharaj as the emperor, and anyone that was in the way were removed. Now, it's not that Krishna was anxious to kill everyone that was on the way. No, Krishna went out of his way many times to educate, to direct, to encourage, to guide. He gave every single person the opportunity, the chance to come on the path of Dharma. And he did it in many different ways, trying to convince everyone there to come on the path of Dharma. He did it with Bhishma Dev, he did it with Karna, he did it with Yudhishthira, he did it with so many, practically everyone. He gave them the opportunity, revealed the truth, and gave them the opportunity to decide. When they were stubborn, when they were adamant, when they did not heed the Supreme Lord's advice, then according to your decision, you embrace the consequence. See, Krishna cannot force you in a direction. Krishna can guide you in a direction. You make the choice according to your decision, whether you want to go towards Krishna or against Krishna. And when you make that decision, then the consequence is upon you. You take the consequence. So the Pandavas, they decided to embrace Krishna and Krishna's direction. Therefore, there was victory. Those who did not, then they were defeated. So when we have Krishna on our side, we should know that we have victory. We have prosperity. We have everything on our side. Why? Because Krishna is there. Our duty is simply to please Krishna, engage in devotional service and please Krishna. And therefore, doing that is all auspicious. Even though temporarily there may be setbacks, it may seem like we are experiencing inauspiciousness, difficulties and challenges. Just like Arjuna on the battlefield also, it wasn't that he did not go through anxiety. He did go through anxiety, but that anxiety that he was going through was short-lived. That anxiety simply allowed him to surrender more to Krishna. And my Lord, now you have to intervene. So in this way, he would go through anxiety, Krishna would relieve him out of the anxiety. And this went through throughout the battle, throughout the days of the battle. 16. Yet dosh numa pani hitam guru bhishma karnam naptri trigartha sala saindava likadyai ashtranga moga mahimani nirupitani no pashri shu Haridasam Ivasurani. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Sharma, Salvyas, Jayadatta, and Balika all directed their invincible weapons against me. But by his, Lord Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head, just as the demons could not affect Prahlad Maharaj, supreme devotee of Lord Nrsimhadev, with the weapons they used against him. Rake Krishna Mareke, Mare Krishna Rakeke. Krishna wants to protect you, no one can kill you. And if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. Arjuna realized that. Purport. The history of Prahlad Maharaj, the great devotee of Nrsimhadev, is narrated in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, a small child, only 5 years, became the object of envy of his great father, Hiranyakashipu, only because of his becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. The demon father employed all the weapons to kill the son, devotee son, Prahlad, but by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from all sorts of dangerous actions by his father. He was thrown in a fire. He was thrown in fire, in boiling oil, from top of a hill, underneath the legs of an elephant, and he was administered poison. At last, the father himself took up a chopper to kill his son, and thus Nrsimhadev appeared and killed the heinous father in the presence of the son. Thus no one can kill a devotee of the Lord. Similarly, Arjuna was also saved by the Lord, although all dangerous weapons were employed by his great opportune. All dangerous weapons were employed by his great opponents like Bhishma. So Prabhupada's statement there, thus no one can kill the devotee of the Lord. Another powerful point, another powerful statement. Sometimes we see devotees killed in circumstances that we may question. Devotee got murdered, devotee got shot, devotee was killed in an car accident, by coronavirus, etc. Prabhupada is making very clear, no one can kill a devotee of the Lord. Nobody can kill a devotee of the Lord. That means that someone who is sincerely serving the Supreme Lord is under the control of the Supreme Lord, and only if the Lord desires, so it will be. Therefore, we should have firm faith again that whatever arrangement, however the Lord decides, that is his sweet will. We are here to please Krishna. Therefore, our goal, our focus is simply to serve Krishna and leave the rest in Krishna's hands. How Krishna wants us to leave this world, what Krishna wants us to experience, that is up to him. Our goal, please Krishna. How Krishna reciprocates is his sweet will. Now Prabhupada goes to describing the different personalities in this purport. Lengthy, Prabhupada is going to touch on different personalities. So first Prabhupada touches on Karna. Born of Kunti by the sun god prior to her marriage with Maj Pandu. Karna took his birth with bangles and earrings, extraordinary signs for an undaunted hero. In the beginning, his name was Vasushena, and when he grew up, he presented his natural bangles and earrings to Indradev, and henceforth he became known as Vaikartana. After his birth from the maiden Kunti, he was thrown in the Ganges. Later, he was picked up by Adirat, and he and his wife Radha brought him up as their own offspring. Karna was very charitable, especially towards the Brahmanas. There was nothing he could not spare for a Brahmana. In the same charitable spirit, he gave in charity his natural bangles and earrings to Indradev, who, being very much satisfied with him, gave him in return a great weapon called Shakti. He was admitted as one of the students of Dronacharya, and from the very beginning, there was some rivalry between him and Arjuna. Seeing his constant rivalry with Arjuna, Duryodhana picked him up as his companion, and thus gradually grew into great intimacy. He was also present in the great assembly of Draupadi's Swayamvar function, and when he attempted to exhibit his talent in that meeting, Draupadi's brother declared that Karna could not take part in the competition because of his being the son of a Sudra carpenter. Although he was refused in the competition, still when Arjuna was successful in piercing the fish target on the ceiling and Draupadi bestowed a garland upon Arjuna, Karna and other disappointed princes offered an unusual stumbling block to Arjuna while he was leaving with Draupadi. Specifically, Karna fought with him very valiantly, but all of them were defeated by Arjuna. Duryodhana was very much pleased with Karna because of his constant rivalry with Arjuna. And when he was in power, he enthroned Karna in the state of anger. Being baffled in his attempt to win Draupadi, Karna advised Duryodhana to attack King Drupada. For after defeating him, both Arjuna and Draupadi could be arrested. But Dronacharya rebuked them for this conspiracy and they refrained from the action. Karna was defeated many times, not only by Arjuna, but also by Bhimasen. He was the king of the kingdom of Bengal, Orissa, Madras combined. Later on, he took an active part in the Rajasuya sacrifice of Mahayudhishthira. And when there was the gambling between the rival brothers, designed by Shakuni, Karna took part in the game, and he was very pleased when Draupadi was offered as a bet in the gambling. This fed his own grudge. When Draupadi was in the game, he was very enthusiastic to declare the news, and it is he who ordered Dushashan to take away the garments of both the Pandavas and Draupadi. He asked Draupadi to select another husband because, being lost by the Pandavas, she was rendered a slave of the Kurus. He was always an enemy of the Pandavas, and whenever there was an opportunity, he tried to curb them by all means. During the battle of Kurukshetra, he foresaw the conclusive result, and he expressed his opinion that due to Lord Krishna's being the chariot driver of Arjuna, the battle should be won by Arjuna. He always differed with Bhishma, and sometimes he was proud enough to say that within 5 days he could finish up the Pandavas if Bhishma could not interfere with his plan of action. But he was much mortified when Bhishma died. He killed Gatotkacha with the Shakti weapon obtained by Indradev. His son, Vrishasena, was killed by Arjuna. He killed the largest number of the Pandava soldiers. At last, there was a severe fight with Arjuna, and it was he only who was able to knock off the helmet of Arjuna. But it so happened that the wheel of his chariot stuck in the battlefield mud, and when he got down to set the wheel right, Arjuna took the opportunity and killed him, although he requested Arjuna not to do so. So Karna is interesting that many people, especially in India, they consider Karna to be like the hero of the Mahabharata. Now, naturally, Karna's life is unique in the sense that from birth, he was rejected by Queen Kunti, by his mother. Under the circumstance, he was the he was the elder of the Pandavas, yet he was called, the son of a charioteer and embarrassed in many ways. He was very powerful, son of the Surya Dev. So his life seems to be a life of tragedy. Now, because he sided with Duryodhana and made friendship with Duryodhana, he was party to all the sinful activities that Duryodhana engaged in. And therefore, even after Krishna had revealed to Karna who he was and gave him an opportunity to come on the path of Dharma, he refused. So there were many situations, many incidents in the Mahabharata where Karna was party to the events. And ultimately, on the battlefield at the end, when his chariot wheel got stuck, we find in that situation, firstly, his wheel got stuck in the mud because of destiny. Karna went disguised as a Brahmana to get education from Parshuram, his guru. Parshuram gave him the knowledge with the understanding that he was a Brahmana. And when Parshuram realized that actually he was a Kshatriya and he spoke a lie, then Parshuram said that when you require this knowledge, at that moment, in that hour of need, you will actually forget what I've taught you. There's also another situation in Karna's life, so that the chariot wheel gets stuck. Now, when Karna is trying to release that chariot wheel and telling Arjuna, don't shoot because you're not meant to kill an unarmed warrior. That was, the rules of the war. But it's interesting that throughout, in the beginning, the war started off with everyone following the rules, and Duryodhana started breaking the rules. Eventually, Duryodhana practically broke every rule. And the Pandavas, they were following the rules and abiding by the rules. And in this situation, Arjuna does not want to shoot Karna because that's the rule. And Krishna tells Arjuna to kill Karna. Now, Karna may complain and voice his opinion. Krishna, how can you say that? Karna, at this point, may question Krishna. Krishna, how can you instruct Arjuna to kill me when I'm unarmed? It is adharma. Krishna's response is, oh, now you're talking about adharma. But when the Pandavas were inflicted with so many adharmic situations, Draupadi disrobed, the house of Lag being, they were set fire, Bhima was poisoned, all these events, where was your dharmic stance? Then you didn't speak about dharma. So, because now your life is threatened, now you speak about dharma. In every situation, you did not, stand for dharma. So therefore, the result of all that adharmic reaction is you have to be killed. And Arjuna obviously shoots his arrow and Karna is killed. Then Prabhupada talks about Napta or Bhurishrava. Bhurishrava was a son of Somadatta, a member of the Kuru family. His other brother was Salvya. Both the brothers and the father attended the Swayamvara ceremony of Draupadi. All of them appreciated the wonderful strength of Arjuna due to his being the devotee friend of the Lord. And thus Bhurishrava advised the son of Dhritarashtra not to pick any quarrel or fight with them. All of them also attended the Rajasuya Yagya of Maj Yudhishthir. He possessed one Akshohini regiment of army, cavalry, elephants, and chariots, and all these were employed in the battle of Kurukshetra on behalf of Duryodhana's party. He was counted by Bhima as one of the Utapatis. In the battle of Kurukshetra, he was especially engaged in the fight with Satyaki, and he killed 10 sons of Satyaki. Later on, Arjuna cut off his hands, and he was ultimately killed by Satyaki. After his death, he merged into the existence of Vasudeva. All the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all that were present there, that were killed in front of Krishna, they all achieved Sayuja Mukti. They all merged into Krishna's impersonal effulgence. That was the benefit or the benediction that Krishna bestowed them. Trigarta or Shusharma, son of Maj Vridakshetra. He was the king of Trigartadesh, and he was also present in the Swayamvara ceremony of Draupadi. He was one of the allies of Duryodhana, and he advised Duryodhana to attack the Matsyadesh Darbanga during the time of the cow stealing in Virat Nagar. He was able to arrest Maj Virat, but later Maj Virat was released by Bhima. In the battle of Kurukshetra, he also fought very valiantly, but at the end he was killed by Arjuna. Jayadratha, another son of Maj Vridakshetra, he was the king of Sindhudesh, modern Sindh, Pakistan. His wife's name was Dushala. He was also present in the Swayamvara ceremony of Draupadi. He desired very strongly to have a hand, but he failed in the competition. But since then, he always sought the opportunity to get in touch with Draupadi. When he was going to marry in the Salya Desh on the way to Kamyavan, he happened to see Draupadi again and was too much attracted to her. The Pandavas and Draupadi were then in exile after losing the empire in the gambling, and Jayadratha thought it wise to send news to Draupadi in an illicit manner through Kotishashya, one of his associates. Draupadi at once refused vehemently the proposal of Jayadratha, but being so much attracted by the beauty of Draupadi, he tried again and again. Every time he was refused by Draupadi, he tried to take her away forcefully on his chariot, and at first Draupadi gave him a good dashing. She was also a Kshatrani, and he fell like a cut root tree. But he was not discouraged, and he was able to force Draupadi to sit on the chariot. This incident was seen by Domya Muni, and he strongly protested the action of Jayadratha. He also followed the chariot, and through Datrayika, the matter was brought to notice of Maj Yudhishthir. So Draupadi also was a powerful warrior, no ordinary personality. She was born from fire. She was fiery. She was very, very educated in the military affairs. She could practically manage a kingdom, and she was also powerful as a warrior. The Pandavas then attacked the soldiers of Jayadratha and killed them all. And at last, Bhima caught hold of Jayadratha and beat him very severely, almost dead. Then all but 5 hairs were cut off his head, and he was taken to all the kings and introduced as a slave of Maj Yudhishthir. He was forced to admit himself to be the slave of Maj Yudhishthir before all the princely orders. And in the same condition, he was brought before Maj Yudhishthir. Maj Yudhishthir was kind enough to order him released. And when he admitted to being a tributary prince under the Maj Yudhishthir, Queen Draupadi also desired release. After this incident, he was allowed to return to his country. Being so insulted, he went to Gangotri in the Himalayas and undertook a severe type of penance to please Lord Shiva. he asked his benediction to defeat all the Pandavas, at least one at a time. Then the battle of Kurukshetra began, and he took sides with Duryodhana. In the first day's fight, he was engaged with Maj Drupad, then with Virat, and then with Abhimanyu. When Abhimanyu was being killed mercilessly, surrounded by the 7 great generals, the Pandavas came to his help. But Jayadratha, by the mercy of Lord Shiva, repulsed them with great ability. At this, Arjuna took a vow to kill him. And on hearing this, Jayadratha wanted to leave the warfare and take permission from the Kauravas for his cowardly action. But he was not allowed to do so. On contrary, he was obliged to fight with Arjuna. And while fighting was going on, Lord Krishna reminded Arjuna that the benediction of Shiva upon Jayadratha was that whoever would cause his head to fall on the ground would die at once. He therefore advised Arjuna to throw the head of Jayadratha directly on the lap of his father, who was engaged in penance at the Samanta Paschaka pilgrimage. This was actually done by Arjuna. Jayadratha's father was surprised to see the severed head on his lap, and he at once threw it to the ground. The father immediately died, his forehead had been cracked in 7 pieces. So here we see how even with Jayadratha, Krishna protected Arjuna by his promise, because Arjuna promised that the next day, I don't kill Jayadratha, either I kill Jayadratha or I kill myself in fire. And the Kauravas knew this, so they practically brought the whole army in front of Arjuna. And Arjuna spent the whole day trying to defeat the army to get to Jayadratha. Finally, Krishna allowed the sun to set before its time. So when the sun was set before its time, everybody was now happy, and they put their weapons down and they told Arjuna, now you got defeated, you need to kill yourself. Arjuna gets down the chariot to set up a fire for him to consume, to kill himself. And immediately Krishna then brings the sun back to its normal journey, and everybody gets are totally surprised. Oh, it's not sunset yet. Krishna tells Arjuna, it's not sunset, kill Jayadratha, but let his head sorry about that. Don't know what happened there, my screen just changed. Okay, so when Krishna told, take Jayadratha's head and let it fall on his father's lap, and in this way his father is killed. So we see in every situation Krishna protecting Arjuna again and again and again. This is the glorious position and fortune of a devotee who is at the shelter, under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 17. Sautya Vrita Kamatinad Mada Ishwaro Me Yat Pada Padmam Abhaya Abhavaya Bhajanti Bhavya Mam Shrantava Ham Arayo Ranino Bhuvistam Na Praharan Yat Anubhava Nirasta Chitta. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dare engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered service by the best men to attain salvation. Supreme Lord, Personality of God, Shri Krishna, is the object of worship both by the impersonalists and by the devotees of the Lord. The impersonalists worship his glowing effulgence, emanating from his transcendental body of eternal form, bliss, and knowledge. And the devotees worship him as the Supreme Personality of God. Those who are below even the impersonalists consider him to be one of the great historical personalities. The Lord, however, descends to attract all by his specific transcendental pastimes, and thus he plays the part of the most perfect master, friend, son, and lover. His transcendental relations with Arjuna was in friendship, and the Lord therefore played the part perfectly, as he did with his parents, lovers, and wives. While playing in such a perfect transcendental relation, devotees forgot by the internal potence of the Lord that his friend or son is the supreme personality of Godhead. Although sometimes the devotees bewildered by the acts of the Lord. After the departure of the Lord, Arjuna was conscious of his great friend, but there was no mistake on the part of Arjuna, nor any ill estimation of the Lord. Intelligent men are attracted by the transcendental acting of the Lord with a pure, unalloyed devotee like Arjuna. In warfare, scarcity of water is a well-known fact. Water is very rare there, and both the animals and men working strenuously on the battlefield constantly require water to quench their thirst. Especially wounded soldiers and generals feel very thirsty at the time of death. And it sometimes so happened that simply for want of water, one has to die unavoidably. But such scarcity of water was solved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra by the means of boring on the ground. By God's grace, water can be easily obtained from any place if there is facility for boring the ground. The modern system works on the same principle of boring the ground, but modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately wherever necessary. It appears, however, from the history as far back as the days of the Pandavas, that big generals like Arjuna could at once supply water even to the horses. And what to speak of men by drawing water from the underneath the hard ground simply by penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow, a method still unknown to modern scientists. So the first point Prabhupada is making is Krishna perfectly reciprocates with the different devotees in the different races as a perfect friend, as a perfect master, perfect friend, son or lover. And with Arjuna, Krishna reciprocate perfectly as a friend. Even though Arjuna is feeling or understanding Krishna's position and feeling that he acted inappropriately, but this was the desire of Krishna to act in the relationship of friendship. Then Prabhupada talks about this water scarcity. We find on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna with his arrows could pierce the ground and immediately water would come out. So this is Krishna's arrangement. There's the water table underneath the earth, and we know in modern times also people can dig a borehole to bring this water up. This is Krishna's arrangement. But during the battle of Kurukshetra, they didn't need huge machines to dig holes deep, 100 meters, 50 meters into the ground. No, simply by their bow and arrow, by the arrows, the warriors could pierce the ground and immediately water could come. We find even during when Bhishma Dev was lying on his bed of arrows, he asked for water. He asked to get his blessing of his mother, Mother Ganga. So Arjuna immediately shot the arrows and Mother Ganga came out. This was the system. So the scientists probably saying they still don't know that system of penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow. They use mechanical means. So there were higher, superior forms of technology during in the previous ages. And thus brings us to the end of these verses where Arjuna is beautifully recollecting all the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. At the same time, the thread in all these pastimes is that he is grateful for Krishna's help, protection, guidance, and he's realizing that every successful situation that he went through was only possible by the desire, by the wish, by the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, his heart is filled with gratitude again and again. So we also should understand that as long as we are surrendered to the Supreme Lord, our life is in his hands, and we should be grateful no matter what comes our way through Krishna's hands. As devotees, we are surrendering to Krishna, and therefore Krishna is taking care of our karma. And however Krishna wants to administer that karma, reduce that karma, increase that karma, however Krishna wants to administer that karma, that is Krishna's sweet will. That is for Krishna's pleasure. Krishna is taking pleasure in administering our karma back to us. So it's giving him pleasure. And therefore we accept whatever the consequences, understanding that this is Krishna's desire. And we continue serving Krishna with greater and greater determination. Bantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Pramanande, Hari Hari Bo. So we will take some questions and comments anyone has. So Mother Lash says, as Arjuna goes through the Leelas he shared with Krishna, he realizes that Krishna's hand and mercy was always with him at every moment. And when Krishna is not physically present, he is now remembering in separation. Yes. We may also sometimes go through a situation, and in some cases we may not realize at that point in time that Krishna's hand is there. But later on we may reflect that actually Krishna was no doubt there. His hand was there. And during the event, we may not be appreciative or grateful to Krishna because we may have seen the negative side of the event, the outcome. But later on, we may look back and we say, well, actually, that was Krishna's arrangement. Krishna made that arrangement so that I could see there could be a positive situation in the future. So like that also, we may look back and see that Krishna was involved, and therefore we can still be grateful to Krishna, and we can pray to Krishna and ask Krishna to forgive us. At that time I could not see your hand, but now I realize it was your hand. You did what was best for me. Therefore in future always allow me to see your hand, see that you are doing what is best for me in every situation. Fana Prabhu says, the meaning of rapt is so factual, completely fascinated or absorbed by what one is seeing or hearing. Yes, Prabhupada uses this word rapt very, very often in the Bhagavatam. Rapt attention, focus, absorbed, not distracted. Prabhupada says, and he connects, Prabhupada uses this word very often in terms of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention, right? Engaging the mind with rapt attention. So that means completely absorbed, fascinated. Nalini Kanta Prabhu, thank you very much for your feedback. Shamananda Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for the nice class. Krishna can ignore our call, reciprocate immediately or reciprocate at a later time and in a way that we may not expect. Nice to be reminded of this. Yes, in one letter, Srila Prabhupada says that every prayer of Krishna is responded to by any devotee. Doesn't mean you're a pure devotee, Krishna respond to your message. No, even a neophyte devotee, Krishna responds. But that response is according to Krishna. And therefore Krishna may respond, just like somebody is calling to Krishna and Krishna hears you, and Krishna says, okay, no problem. Thank you for your request, your prayer. For now, my response is no response. My response is ignore. Because, or my response is, it's all in order. It's going as planned. And it's going as planned, not according to your plan, but according to Krishna's plan. So therefore we may think, well, just see, Krishna didn't respond. I prayed to Krishna, I did so much austerity, I chanted so many rounds and Krishna did not respond. No, Krishna is responding to every situation, not the way you want him to respond. And that's true because you're not God. You are completely subservient to Krishna's potencies and energies. We are fragmental parts, insignificant fragmental parts. So we simply have to accept Krishna's in control. We see even in our own situation and experience, at times we don't know why, how, why things happen the way they do. Yes. With some of these, Krishna reveals certain things to us so we have a better understanding of everything and move forward a little wiser and increased faith in the Lord. Also, we see that through some events, Krishna ties up many things simultaneously, both relating to us and others. And seeing this, we are humbled and are reminded that we are insignificant, very small, and that Krishna is in control and is all knowing. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada for so nicely describing these personalities in the purports. Yes, thank you very much, Shamananda Prabhu, for your feedback. And yes, Krishna knows the big picture. Krishna knows the whole picture. And because Krishna knows the whole picture, then Krishna's decision on what to do and how to do it in every single event and moment is perfect. We have no clue because we only see a fragmental part of the situation and also a biased perspective because we see it from our perspective. So our perspective is incomplete, our perspective is biased, and we don't see everything and don't understand everything. Therefore, we should leave it in Krishna's hands and know that whatever Krishna does is the best in every single situation without fail. Wafana Prabhu, is it perhaps purposeful that we are fully exposed to the deadly spilled blood of at the war as we hear the narration of the events? I'm asking just for interest's sake in realizing the details provided for the whole war. Is it perhaps purposeful that we are fully exposed to the deadly spilled blood at the war as we hear the narrations of the events? So the Mahabharata, in fact, the Mahabharata gives great details of the war, 18 days, and great details is given by Srila Vyasadeva. And the reason Krishna is, or the details are there, is manifold. One is that the Mahabharata has every emotion experienced by humanity. And Krishna knew that everyone will be attracted by the Mahabharata. So everyone is hearing the Mahabharata. Those who want romance, those who want chivalry, warfare, ghastliness, tragedy, intrigue, backbiting, politics, you name it, it's there in the Mahabharata. Now, this intrigue or this challenge, this feud between the two families, family fighting, right, is now culminating in the Mahabharata war. And because everyone is now curious to know what happens and they're hearing this ghastly warfare that's happening, they're attentive to hearing. They, as Burijan Prabhu says, their ears are perked up to hearing every detail of the Mahabharata. And right at that onset, during this critical part of the Mahabharata, right at the beginning of this Mahabharata, Krishna puts the Bhagavad Gita. And then also, as we narrating through the narrations, Krishna's glory is coming through, Krishna's intervention is coming through. So this way, the Mahabharata and the description of the Mahabharata is intertwined with Krishna's glories, and everyone is getting exposed unknowingly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. I'm interested so much in the suffering and setbacks set out for the Pandavas, like in the example of Draupadi. It is interesting how these sufferings are meant for us to take as grace from Lord Krishna. Yes. And again, there are many reasons why the Pandavas go through these difficulties. Not only the Pandavas, all the devotees. We find in the history of the world, many devotees have gone through suffering. There are lessons for us that we will also go through suffering. And we need to take inspiration and courage. How did these devotees go through suffering? We should also go through the sufferings with that consciousness. So it's helping us to develop the proper psyche, the proper mentality, the proper attitude of how we should respond to suffering when we go through suffering. This is why Krishna puts his devotees into these tremendous, not just small forms of suffering, but tremendous forms of suffering. Because when they go through these tremendous forms of suffering and we see how they're going through them, it gives us the perfect lesson for us to remember. So when we're going through suffering, immediately our mind can go through the suffering of Draupadi, or go through the suffering of Arjuna, the Pandavas, and in that way we get inspired and protected, because we are remembering the devotees of the Lord. Mother Lesa, Hare Krishna, thank you for the Krishna card. This is very nice. This is a very rich chapter and the purports, because so many circumstances with so many participants in Krishna Leela is spoken about. Can't miss one single sentence, or else we will miss out. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada. Yes. And as I mentioned, Prabhupada is taking the opportunity to reveal his love through these purports. Prabhupada is sharing his intimate association, his intimate personal relationship and love through these Bhaktivedanta purports to us. So they're not just ink on a page. They're not just there to take time out. Therefore, we should not just skip them over. It is really our good fortune to associate with Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's loving reciprocation or loving relationship with Krishna through these purports. And Prabhupada, we see sometimes Prabhupada, it's like Prabhupada goes into ecstasy and then he says certain things. And Prabhupada himself said that these Bhaktivedanta purports are my personal ecstasies. So it's Prabhupada in loving ecstasy. When a devotee in love goes and experiences ecstatic symptoms, hair stand on end, goosebumps, his voice choke up, he gets stunned, his limbs are withdrawn. These are different ecstatic symptoms of bhava. But Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports are his ecstasies. His personal ecstasies coming in the form of these English words put together in the form of Bhaktivedanta purports. So these are Prabhupada's personal ecstasies that we are encountering and associating with. And no doubt, they are very, very purifying and very nourishing to our Bhakti Kripa. For us as Prabhupada followers, as Prabhupada know this. So thank you very much for spending the time associating with Srimad Bhagavatam and associating with Srila Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports. We will conclude here and continue Arjuna's remembrance, recollection of Krishna next week. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai, Go Pramanande, Hari Hari.